In this video, I want to help you understand where you should be buying for cash flow, whether it's your first investment property or whether it's your next investment property. Now, I could simply give you a list of all the hotspots in the UK and away you go. But you're not going to really be learning an awful lot if I just give you a list of hotspots, because I want to actually explain to you a bit more about how you actually go and assess an area and then how you compare areas and make a decision about which area you should go and invest in. For those of you that don't care about investing science, here's a list of hotspots. Here's a tool that I pay for called Property Data. In there, you've got rental yield hotspots. You can go and look at this for free and it will show you the top 5 hotspots, I think it is, for free. If you pay for subscription, you get access to the whole list. Like here it is, here's the whole list. For example, this one has the highest average yield. So the key thing is average. So it's not necessarily every property you buy in there is gonna return this amount of yield. So you need to do a bit of additional research, but basically NG7, and we can click on this to go and see what NG7 is. It's in Nottingham, and you can just go through the list and see what you got. Look, these ones have all got 12, these have got 10, these have got 9. You know, I'm just gonna go this down here so you can see them all, and you can pause this to have a look at it in more detail. Then we've also got HomeTrack. So this is free. You can just go to this website, hometrack.com, and they've got this nice chart that gives you a list of all the major cities in England and Scotland. It gives you the average price, how it's performed over the last 12 months is the main thing I look at. And you know, there's some nice graphics here just showing you the trend over time. So you can click on the tops and just organize it by whichever one you want to. So we can see London's the highest house price, followed by Cambridgeshire. But if we want to see how things have performed over the last 12 months, which has performed the best, we can see Nottingham has performed the best at 2.9% over the last 12 months. And then we've got a list Birmingham, Sheffield, down to the bottom here where we've got Aberdeen that's been performing the worst, and then followed by Belfast and then London. Being a property investor is more than simply buying property in one of these areas and renting it out. Anyone can do that, but I want you to become a better property investor, and that's why I'm going to show you exactly how to assess an area. And this way you will increase your investing skills. And what I'm going to be showing you is a way that you can then assess an area and then compare areas against each other, and therefore actually drill down to narrow down exactly which particular area you should be going for that's going to likely achieve your financial goals. Now, when we assess an area, there's 10 key selection criteria that I look at when I'm assessing an area, and I'm going to go through those now. So number 1 is, does the area have potential for good cash flow? Ultimately, this video is about how to make the most cash flow from your investment. So this is one of the key things that I'm sure that all of you will want to know about an area, but this isn't the only thing that you should be using to determine whether you invest in that area. It is one of the 10 key selection criteria. So what I use a tool to help me work this out, just as a high level thing. So Property Data, which I showed you before, links in the description if you're interested in that software. That enables me at a quick glance to be able to see which areas are performing well at the moment. So number 2 is, do I need access to it? So accessibility. So depending on the strategy that you're using for your property investment, so how close a property is to you becomes more important. And why I say that is, so if you're refurbishing a property and you're likely to do that yourself, even if you're not doing it yourself, if you're refurbishing a property, you're going to be hiring trades, you might be hiring a builder to look after the whole refurbishment. Either way, you're going to need to be going to the property, meeting people on site, letting them in, going and checking on them regularly if they're refurbishing it, or doing some work to it, maintaining your property. Even a normal buy-to-let, you need to have someone that's got the ability to let them in. So if it's a normal vanilla buy-to-let, you probably would use a property manager, and therefore it doesn't matter where you live. With the properties I bought in the US, obviously location didn't matter to me because I put in place a property manager which could then go and look after those properties for me. They hired trades, all that stuff remotely. It's totally remote, hands off, but I did the hard work on the ground to start with, assessing their area, finding the right property manager that could meet my needs and the requirements that I had for those properties going forward. And then I could just set and forget it. I was just managing the property manager. And so if that's what you want to do, location isn't that important to you. So then you can look beyond maybe a distance. So you look at your home, you look at where you want to be in relation to how far you want to drive, and that determines how accessible that property needs to be to you. It might be, well, I'm happy to drive an hour each way, and therefore that makes it, I can drive, 30 miles gets me an hour, or it might be 40 miles gets you an hour, depending on where you live in the country. And therefore you can draw a radius around your home and go, right, I can invest in any of these areas here, and that's your limit. And then you've got to look at the other assessment areas to determine, which particular location within that area do you want to narrow it down to? Because we don't want to just search the whole area, because you just get overwhelmed by the amount of properties that you've got, and therefore staying atop all these different areas is too difficult. So you need to narrow it down all the way to, ideally something like a 5 mile, 3 mile radius, or to a specific town, or a town plus a radius around it. And the third key selection criteria is, what's the trend? What I mean by this is, what is the trend that's happening with capital appreciation? Is it going up? Is it stagnating? Or is it even on the decline? And so this plays an important consideration when you're looking at an area, because ultimately, yes, we want cash flow, but we also want the cherry on the top if we can get it, which is capital appreciation. We want cash flow to give us another income stream and ultimately maybe replace your earned income so you can quit your day job if that's what you want to do. Also, over time, we know we're going to get capital appreciation, but different areas will have a different amount of capital appreciation. And that's why we need to assess the areas and look at capital appreciation. Land Registry is a free portal. It's based on HMRC data, proper land registry data that's happened with purchases and sales in England and in the UK. So the fourth key selection criteria is crime rate, ultimately safety. And there's a website called crimerate.co.uk where you can put an area in there and it will drill down and give you lots of different graphs and reports and views on what's been happening in relation to crime in that area. Now again, comes down to your appetite to risk, your appetite to crime, what's an acceptable level. Ultimately, there's crime everywhere, so you're never going to get away from it. But it's like, what's an acceptable level? Does it feel safe? And this is why it's important that you also go and visit areas. You can't just rely on doing everything remotely, checking everything on the internet. You have to get out there and walk the streets as well. But this way, you do a first check across a tool like crimerate.co.uk and assess whether that even seems acceptable to you. And you can go down to individual streets and it will show you the levels of crime in that street, what's happened in that street over the history. And this is given, the data's come directly from the police. And ultimately, your tenants are going to be assessing the same things. If they see there's a lot of crime in an area where your property is located, they're going to look somewhere else. And you may then find that your property has a low amount of tenant demand. Which brings us nicely into the fifth point of our key selection criteria, which is tenant demand. So we want to understand if the area has enough demand to meet the amount of supply of houses that are available for rent. At the moment, right now as I record this, rental demand is high. At the moment, rents are good for landlords and they can achieve what they want and they can get a tenant in super quickly. There's very little vacancy periods if you buy in the right location. And that's why it's important that you understand what the tenant demand is in there. And how we do this is we have to get on the ground and we have to go and talk to local agents and understand how many properties they have for rent, what property type is most in demand from tenants. So it could be that 2 beds are what people want, or 3 beds, or it's more family focused, or it's more student focused. Again, it could be specific areas within a town even, depending on how big your town is or a city. And you go, I'm after that pocket, or I'm after those types of tenants, or I'm after that type of property. It's a 2 bed or a 3 bed, or it could be a flat, student-let property, those types of things. To do this remotely, we look at Rightmove and we just look at the area. Again, you put in a postcode or put in the town or city and the type of property that you're interested in. Say it's a 2-bed terrace property, put that in there, click the button to say let agreed. Then you can see how many properties are actually being let. If the majority of the listings on there say that let's been agreed and there's only like 5 available, that already gives you a good indication that there's high tenant demand because stuff's not staying on the market very long. But don't assume just because you like an area that the tenants are going to like that area as well. Everyone's got different needs and wants, and it's important that you really understand what those tenants' needs and wants are for their types of property so that you buy the property that's most likely going to be in demand now and going forward into the future. So number 6 is transport. This is important, especially for anyone that's got a job and they have to commute and things like that. So when it comes to transport, logistics, we're talking about roads, infrastructure, public transport, so trains, bus services, those types of things are important. How far away are they from the area that you're looking at? And then you can narrow it down to the street really, once you start looking at properties and understanding how far away is the local tube or the train station, how far away is the bus links, how far away are the major roads from that location. And then when you're looking at streets, how difficult is it to get in and out of that street? Is it a one-way system that you have to go around this whole big convoluted thing to get to that address? Is it on a major busy road? How are these things going to impact the tenant demand? That's why all of these things connect to each other and then will help you determine whether you think this area is great as you assess this area. Ultimately we'll talk about grading these areas so that we give them a grade so we can then compare them an area with another area with another area. So then you've got a way of evaluating which area makes more sense for you to choose. So number 7 is schools and education. So depending on who your target tenant might be, you might be saying, I want to go appeal to families, or I want to appeal to young professional couples, or I want to appeal to students. Again, where's the local schools? How far away are the local primary schools, the secondary schools? What rating do they have? What Ofsted rating do they have? And so these are important. If a property or an area is within close proximity to a load of outstanding primary schools or outstanding secondary schools, it's going to appeal to families. It's in catchment areas, and therefore that area you might be able to narrow it down to 1 mile or a 2 mile radius that you go, I really want to go in there, I want to go with families, I want a 2-bed house or a 3-bed house, doesn't matter if it's terrace or semi-detached. I want it close to a park and different things like that. And so if it becomes to students, how far away is it university? They're walking all the time or maybe on a bike. Ultimately, the walkability of that property to where it is in relation to the university, to the shops, other things, facilities that they might want access to, becomes super important to students. Which brings us to number 8, the recreation facilities in that area. So how much open space is there in that area? Is there places to walk? Is there places for things to do and see? Ultimately, if it's for families, those things are going to play an important role. Young professionals, maybe less so, because they just want more nightlife, shops, things to go out and do, transport, things like that. So again, coupled with what's the tenant demand, what's your type of property, what's the recreation facilities that are available, you can start to piece, well, this area would be more suitable for that target tenant in this type of property compared to this one. Which leads us to number 9, shopping. And we're looking at what facilities are there available in that area when it comes to shopping. So is there a high street? Is there like a retail trade park nearby? Is there good facilities for parking? Is everything quite accessible? Could you even walk from certain areas to the high street? So number 10 is jobs. So jobs drive house pricing at the end of the day. If jobs start to decline, house prices start to decline. If jobs are increasing, house prices will increase because ultimately people have security, people's wage starts to go up, they look to upscale or add value to the house by renovating their house and things like that. If major companies start to move away from an area, headquarters are closing down or they're relocating to different areas, and that area just starts to have lots of commercial vacancies around, or the high street's got lots of vacancies around, this isn't going to be appealing for people to want to live there, and therefore they're going to pick a different area where there's a bit more of a vibe, a bit more of a buzz, a bit more things going on, and they've got the facilities they need to in that area. And so where jobs are coming into play. If there's lots of jobs being advertised in that area, new headquarters are being created, big companies are moving there and providing more jobs. The high street, things are being let quickly. You can go and walk the high street and see this was vacant last month, this month it's been let. And you can also check this stuff on Super and Rightmove to see what commercial properties are starting to go and to be let, or how many are available to be let in that street, in that high street. With jobs, it has a knock-on effect to tenant demand, and this can impact ultimately your house price going forward. By considering these 10 characteristics of an area, you can then grade your area by simply grading it, say, from A to F, giving it plus or minuses to tweak it a little bit, and therefore once you've assessed one area, you can then do the same on another area, and then you can compare the two with an overall score and ranking your areas to compare which one's better than the next one. Once you've decided on an area, you then need to decide what type of property you want to go for. And to help you do that, I've created this video for you now that will explain the 5 worst types of buy-to-let properties that you could buy. And you should avoid those ones. So go and watch that video now. Thanks very much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.